Cryptocurrency is having a notable impact on the world's financial markets, but it's also affecting the environment.
In fact, a single Bitcoin transaction uses the same amount of power as the average U.S. household uses in 72 days.
The Tesla CEO now saying his company will no longer take the cryptocurrency as payment for its vehicles.
He said the use of Bitcoin cannot come at great cost to the environment.
With an environmental impact like this, Bitcoin is more like digital coal than digital gold.
Cryptocurrency has created opportunities to scam investors, assist criminals, and worsen the climate crisis.
I think I share the ultimate goals of people who are attacking Bitcoin mining, because those people want to address climate change. They want to address wasteful consumption. I think they're horribly misguided, because Bitcoin mining is actually a tool to make the transition to a greener grid. It's a tool to address methane emissions. And they are fighting the thing that would actually help us make the transition that they want and that I want. So it's a terrible misunderstanding. This is not a zero-sum battle of ideologies. It's actually just an incredible mistake.
So originally I wanted to make a film about Bitcoin mining, but in doing so, I've kind of had to go down the rabbit hole and learn about the energy sector. The fact that energy in the Western developed world is always on is actually a great feat of engineering. I think we all take it for granted. We know Bitcoin has massive utility in the energy sector. It's now supporting the stabilization of grids. And so anyone who's saying Bitcoin mining has no utility has either not done the research or already has an agenda against it. No bellies. Fuck off. All above here. Do I walk weird? When I see our videos, I feel like I look at them and I'm like this. In learning about Bitcoin mining, I've had to learn about the energy sector and the complex systems that ensure that we can switch on our TVs and make a cup of tea whenever we want. But there are people making claims that Bitcoin mining is wasting energy. So I've come out to Texas to find out why this state has welcomed Bitcoin miners with open arms. We're trying to find out a little bit more about what people understand about the energy grid. Do you know anything about how the grid produces energy?
Doesn't it store energy from like solar and wind?
I know a portion is coal. I see some investments in wind power, which is good. I love it.
Do you know anything about how there's companies called Bitcoin miners who now integrate with the grid?
All I know is that to mine Bitcoin, it takes an incredible amount of energy.
Not really a fan of that.
Why not?
It just kind of seems like it's a more manipulation of the power. Like Bitcoin mining, like what does that even mean? Is it really for the benefit or is it for somebody else to make more money?
I don't invest in Bitcoins. I'm not a believer.
I assume it's going to be a real test of the grid system.
So the way the energy grid works is that you always need to match generation with supply. So there always needs to be a real-time balancing. So a grid operator will dispatch generation that is matching the loads, and then it requires the transmission take that power from the generation to the demand. But at all times, supply always has to equal demand.
As economies shift, businesses come and go, and once thriving towns built around a single industry can fall on hard times when that industry moves away. But when Bitcoin miners move into rural towns, they're putting people back to work and boosting the local economy. To me, it's only natural that Bitcoin has found a home here in Texas because of the deregulated energy market, and maybe it's just that word mining that kind of appeals to them. So we're going to Riot Blockchain's facility. They're one of the biggest Bitcoin miners in North America.
How are you, man?
Good to
Doing
see
well?
you, dude. Yeah, I'm good.
I'm a Texan now. I got a Texas driver's license. I live in Texas.
Have you got a Texas flag at home?
We got Texas flags everywhere.
Okay, can we have a look?
Yeah. So this facility is inside of 33,000 private acres. That's what attracted us to Rockdale in the beginning. And we ended up finding this facility via Wired magazine. So there was an article called Town Hits Hard Luck, and this whole thing was about how a major miner manufacturer was coming, was gonna create all these jobs, and they did none of it. and left the town with a feeling of resentment. And so we show up in January of 2020, we started building this facility, and we turned the power on June 3rd. That was 183 days. This just doesn't become a Bitcoin mining facility. This becomes a rural community revitalization facility.
There's like this alignment between Texas and Bitcoin. Why do you think that is?
Texas in general is pro-business and has an incredible workforce. Any industry that wants to come to Texas and make the investment, Texas gets behind. That's why Governor Abbott loves Bitcoin mining in Texas. It's 2017. We can't figure out how to get rid of the heat. We buy 2x4s and plywood, and we build this, and it literally is a firebox, but we build a reverse chimney. Now, it's hot, it's windy, it's uncomfortable, but it's cool as shit.
All right.
Whoa! Pick your feet up.
Yeah.
Watch your head. This is the original design. We haven't changed it in here. During the summer, inside of here is about 150 degrees. Oh yeah.
That's a sauna.
There's no fans.
Yeah.
There's no exhaust fans.
The heat rises.
No. It's pressurized. You force the air out. Now I want you to look up, and you'll notice how it cuts in and goes up. That was the mistake. I want you to remember the feeling in here, because when we go in our new design, you're gonna see how we fixed it. Let's go this way.
It sounds noisier already.
It's already noisier.
Everything's neater.
Way deeper. Now these are in pods. This is 10 megawatts, that is 10 megawatts, and 10 megawatts, and 10 megawatts, and 10 megawatts. But now, let's go inside of this one.
Whoa.
Now, let's look up. Remember in the other building, it turned in. Right here, it's open and it's taller. We learned through doing thermal engineer studying what the right dynamics were for this space. You feel the air is moving faster in here.
Okay, you feel it coming up.
It literally is flying out of the building.
So loud in here.
And it's way louder in here.
It's amazing.
It's wild. All right, so we're gonna walk into a construction zone, so please watch your step. Make sure you have your hard hat on at all times. Because we have a long-term power purchase agreement, what they call a PPA, we have the ability to offset that downtime cost through offloading our power. We have the opportunity to shed our load and recover our costs and or make a profit.
What is the thing that keeps you up at night with a site like this? What's the one thing you're worrying about?
You really want to know?
Yeah, I really want to know.
That and that aren't the same distance. It's that kind of stuff.
How long have you worked here?
About 10 months.
What did you do before?
Driving trucks.
And how much do you actually know about Bitcoin?
Well, I was kind of playing with Bitcoin before I got this job.
Okay, so you knew a bit.
Like Robinhood or whatever. So yeah, I had a little bit of knowledge of it.
When you came here and started working on this and realized like the scale of the operation,
yes,
how did you feel about that?
To be a part of an operation like that.
And what do you do here?
I do a little bit of everything. I enjoy it.
Andrew, do you own any Bitcoin?
At this time, no.
What do you make of Bitcoin?
I think it's something good.
And what's Chad like? Is he all right?
Chad's wonderful.
When we're gone, is he going to be yelling at you or is he still cool?
He's good. He's the way he is all day.
You know what screaming does?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah, no, I've got 2 kids.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you learn,
I've
right?
learned that. How do these boards not short?
The water comes into the heat exchanger, cools the plates, which cools the oil. The oil then returns to the tank. If you look very carefully, you can see the oil just gently moving through here.
Talk to me about the impact that this whole site has had on the local community here.
We came here, this was a forest. A prior company had come here and promised 400 jobs and delivered none. So it was real easy for somebody to say, don't tell us something you're not gonna do. And we're like, well, it's real simple. Let's go put lights ourselves on the playgrounds so parents could watch their kids play sports at night, because The school system didn't have enough money to do it, so we paid for it.
And how many jobs have been created here for the community?
We have about 280 physical on-site here at Riot. In addition to that, we have 450 full-time contractors.
When you see someone like Elizabeth Warren criticizing Bitcoin, knowing there are jobs here and what it's doing for people, that must piss you off.
I'm disappointed in their approach because I've invited everyone. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, I will meet you. If you take such a strong stance against something and you haven't taken the time to go look into it, like, come on.
What does he say? It's Brad's Barbecue. This is the side of America I love. You come to this facility and they're like, do you want to talk to the mayor? And we're like, yeah. And they're like, because he owns a barbecue restaurant. You're not Brett, are you? Yeah. Brett? Yeah, I'm Peter. Yeah, nice to meet you. So we've just been up to the Riot facility. They said you got to meet the mayor.
In the barbecue.
In the barbecue king.
We're actually closed right now.
Elizabeth Warren is building an anti-crypto army as part of her re-election campaign, but she hasn't taken the time to figure out why Bitcoin is unique. She believes it will ruin the economy, but that couldn't be further from the truth here in Rockdale. How did you end up here in Rockdale?
I got tired of Austin traffic, and I moved here 4.5 years ago and started this barbecue joint, and then it kind of blew up, and then I got tired of looking at City Hall over here and nothing being done, so I ran for mayor. I am not a politician.
Okay.
I don't go in that building unless we have a meeting. I do everything from my tablet. When a concerned citizen reaches out, hey, what's your number? Let me call you. What can I do to help you? That's my mentality.
Have you found anything in doing the job that's holding you back, that's getting in your way?
Yeah, we need more money in this town to do some more stuff for the kids. We got to clean up the town, which we've done a lot in almost the year that I've been in that seat. But if we clean up the town, it entices people to come here and open businesses.
Do you enjoy the job?
Yeah, not really.
Do you not secretly enjoy it?
I want to be able to look back on it and say, I helped this town, this community prosper economically, grow in the right direction.
So how much do you know about that facility up there? How much time have you spent with them?
Me and Chad moved here the same week. I've seen that whole thing from raw land to what it is now.
How important is it for the town?
I would say 60% of the people that work out there either are from Rockdale or the outer lying communities. I mean, that creates cash flow in our economy. Those people that work out there go to the bars, restaurants, get gas, which therefore creates a tax base for us to grow. It's very important.
Are you aware of the regulatory pressures that come on to Bitcoin, complaining about the energy usage? Yeah. Are you aware of that kind of pressure?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of people around here think they take all the energy and drive our energy cost up. What I would say to them is, be glad they're here, and here's why. When we had a winter storm 2 years ago, hardly anyone in this town lost power because they were able to power down and we could take power off the grid, which is in our backyard. And people don't realize they sell a lot of that back.
Well, I appreciate your time, man. The only disappointment is we were told the barbecue's so good and we're not going to get any. So we'll have to come back. What you've got here is people being given job security, they're being retrained with new skills, they have benefits, they can put their kids through college. These are real jobs for real people in communities that have suffered. If you dip into the mainstream coverage of Bitcoin, all you see is negativity. Because from the outside in, what do you see of Bitcoin? You see 22-year-olds getting rich, and you hear about the mass amount of energy being used and bad for the environment. When Elizabeth Warren starts attacking Bitcoin, she's attacking Americans and she's attacking American jobs. It's because they can't control it. And it's not me being a fucking conspiracy theorist or some kind of weird nutter. They just can't control it.
New data confirming the USA is now the top destination for Bitcoin miners, surpassing China for the first time.
Mining is increasing emissions from coal and natural gas generation, especially when miners bring old polluting fossil fuel plants around the country online.
It's an extremely inefficient way of conducting transactions, and The amount of energy that's consumed in processing those transactions is staggering.
And it makes it not a good way to buy and sell things, and not a good investment, and an environmental disaster.
People imagine that Bitcoin mining is this extractive industry using a precious resource that others need, a scarce resource, when in fact, Bitcoin uses only the cheapest energy available by design. And that energy is going to be wasted energy. Either it's stranded in space, like it's remote hydroelectric electricity, or it's stranded in time. It's solar during the middle of the day when the grid doesn't need it. It's the kind of power that is not scarce, but abundant. That's what Bitcoin uses. And by using abundant power, Bitcoin actually helps our energy system rather than stressing it.
Mac, nice to see you. How you doing?
Welcome.
You can't sell the bulls. We're the bulls.
Oh, we sell bulls.
Oh, you sell actual bulls?
We sell actual bulls.
What? Really?
Yeah. They're all sold out this year.
Damn, I was about to say, I want to see this. Thank you for having us.
Good. Yeah, this is actually my office, you know.
This is a young person's office.
Well, I'm a young person.
You got a pool table.
I'm young at heart.
Oh, I can hear it already.
This is the crypto closet. Little soundproofing.
How are you keeping it cool?
So the air comes in through here, goes in through the machines and goes out the side of the house. It doesn't have to be cold air, it just has to be a lot of air movement coming through here.
Has the power company been in touch? Are they like, what are you doing?
They
here?
love it. They're selling me electricity.
Yeah, of course.
There's the heat.
There's the heat. Oh.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to figure out some way to like
use it.
But then in the summers, it gets awfully hot.
You have to build something that can detach.
Yeah, so that's it.
So what's your background, Mac?
My grandfather, once upon a time in Dallas, built warehouses, and those warehouses are still here today, and they took care of my grandmother and my aunt. I like those things that you can put effort into, build, that last a long time. So then I went into the land investment business, did pretty well with that, but it gave me a very, very low time preference. And that's what I have on Bitcoin, it's just real long-term perspective.
How did you get into Bitcoin? What was your introduction?
So after COVID, I ended up shorting the US market pretty heavily because like, how can you shut everything down and not have it affect everything? And I was wrong. I mean, I was real wrong.
I think you were right.
You can be right, but you can still be wrong, you know?
It didn't make any sense.
I have an opinion, yes. The reason that I was wrong is that they just printed a bunch of money and filled all the cracks in where they were starting to form. And I still think at some point we're going to pay for that.
You're a new Bitcoiner, like relatively, a couple of years?
Yes, it's a relatively new thing. In 2020 was when I started to heavily invest in Bitcoin.
But you've got to have some conviction, because if you were buying in like 2020, I'm guessing you're down on Bitcoin. In your
I'm
dollar
down.
terms. Yeah.
There's no question about it.
But do you think we as Bitcoiners sometimes like tell ourselves a story and don't always face the truth? Like I told people this is a hedge against inflation. It wasn't.
Right.
I'm down over the last 2 years pretty badly. And so like, do you think sometimes we maybe convince ourselves a narrative that isn't always true?
I've lived through a lot of different markets of being right and having to wait for the payoff. And I just think that's where we are.
So you've discovered it a couple of years ago. You've gone deep. You've gone straight into building a mining rig.
I have a history of doing that.
So when you find something, you go both feet in.
I do, yeah.
You know what it sounds like? Like I'm an addict.
Yeah.
I'm like an actual addict. My history of addictions.
Right.
When I find something, I'm in.
I usually have good kind of addictions.
I usually have bad ones. How do the economics work? What is the whole cost structure you have to think about?
I would say that's probably changed over the time of ownership. First, it was a very profitable thing to do. Right now, I'm probably breaking even.
That whole proof of work, the whole time preference seems to be something that is translated to what is in your history and your family's history.
Yeah, it does cost money for electricity, and I'm trading that cost of electricity for something that's going to last into the future.
The big picture of what we need to do in energy is we need to electrify everything. We need to stop burning fossil fuels for heating, for transport, and we need to replace that with electrical energy use. And that means we need to generate a tremendous amount of electricity that we don't currently. We're going to need to triple the size of generation. The way to do that in a low carbon way is to use wind, solar, nuclear, hydro, geothermal, sources of energy that don't emit a lot of carbon. Those sources are highly intermittent in general, especially wind and solar, meaning we will have lots of excess power at times of day and in parts of the country. That is guaranteed given a massive overbuild of renewables that we need to make the transition. Bitcoin miners, as flexible consumers of power, are able to come in and consume that excess electricity and pay for it. And that addresses the problems of renewable build out by providing another additional revenue stream for renewable generators.
Charles, what's your Bitcoin story?
My career was like online, subreddit. Thought I knew what Bitcoin was. Always wanted to work in Bitcoin, but I'm not a developer. I work in oil and gas. That'll never have anything to do with Bitcoin.
What are they called, those things that bounce up and down in the ground?
We've got a couple of those out of the site.
What are they called?
They're called pump jacks.
Is there just like a thick layer of oil across these two states and you can just like put it anywhere and find oil?
Yeah. The one we're headed to right now is a particularly old field.
Okay.
We particularly go after gas that feasibly will probably never be sold or is actively being wasted.
What's the structure of the arrangement? Do you buy the power from them?
So for this site,
yeah,
the operator had been selling their gas to a pipeline.
Okay.
And it was just not a good deal. So we were like, we will offer you a much better deal. We'll solve a lot of your problems right now, but we need you to basically sell us cheap gas for a long period of time. Hey, Kyle.
Nice to meet you.
Good to meet y'all.
Kyle, what's your background?
So I'm a petroleum engineer, University of Tulsa, for engineering, economics, and then an MBA. And I've worked oil and gas my entire career pretty much. I've been mostly with private equity firms, so those are the little scrappy guys in the industry. Our job is to go out and prove that we can do it better, faster, and or cheaper. Or at least we like to pretend we can.
And did you know Bitcoin before this?
Charlie has been trying to convince me to do this since like 2012. And so the way Charlie finally convinced me to do this, I had just drilled a $16 million well. And the gas pipeline company had me online 100 days out of the first year. CEOs in my office cussing me out. Why you keep changing what the well's producing? I don't know, there's no pipe. And in the middle of this existential crisis, Charlie calls me up and goes, well, what if you could just fire those guys? And that basic premise, we were good boys and girls and paid our taxes. The government bailed out the banks foreclosed on our houses anyway. Maybe we don't let the government be in charge of money anymore. And that made a lot of sense to me.
Love it. Fucking idiot. I've got some fucking booze back in my luggage. I fucking forgot.
What makes oil and gas work as far as a worldwide fuel source is that it takes far less energy to get the energy out. That's because you're working with the natural pressure inside the rock. So the deeper it is, the more pressure there is.
So once you've made the hole, the pressure forces it back up.
It forces it out of the well.
So based on what you know now, how will Bitcoin mining change the oil and gas industry?
Ultimately, your oil and gas guys become your Bitcoin miners because they see themselves as energy companies, right? They're not really worried where the energy is coming from or where it's going to, as long as they're creating the cheapest, best energy available. They like oil because right now it's the best thing we can get permitted. They'd probably all bail and go to nuclear if you said we could go do that. But oil and gas has never been found any place you want to be. And so there's never a city there. The sole exception being Dallas has the Barnett under it. But everything else is out in the sticks. It takes a lot of infrastructure to make this useful inside of your house. And a lot of that infrastructure is getting to the age now where it's really not feasible to keep repairing it. One of the incredible things about Bitcoin is you can do this from anywhere in the world. You could sit a Bitcoin mine in an Alaskan centralized facility because they need heat. Heat is not a waste product there, it's an input.
Your big job is going to be convincing oil and gas people on Bitcoin.
The hardest part of getting all this to work is not the well site, not the mine.
It's the people.
It's the paperwork.
Yeah. Oh, the paperwork.
Right? And the nice thing about oil and gas is that we've got 150 years of legalese behind this stuff for teaching people how to play nice and share. And so we basically took those agreements and applied it to Bitcoin, and that lets us get a wider range of investors.
Ultimately, what we want to do is to take
the thousands of wells that look like this and clean them up, and we want to take that methane out of the air and just run it through a mine and basically make it a profitable solution.
This whole place is fucking insane.
Yeah.
I'm gonna move to Oklahoma. You got a job?
Bitcoin mining is a tremendously powerful tool for making an energy transition to a greener grid and for mitigating methane. And people have exactly the opposite impression of what Bitcoin mining is. I myself went through this journey. I stopped mining in 2011 because I had concerns about how Bitcoin mining could impact the environment. On deeper inspection, Bitcoin mining is the very opposite. I think it's a tool to help us make a transition to a greener grid. Methane is a very potent greenhouse gas. It's 80 times as warming over a 20-year period. It's 25 times as warming as CO2 over a 100-year period. And it's what the UN calls our biggest lever in the fight against climate change. It's responsible for up to 1/3 of all warming. And it's coming from sources as varied as the oil and gas industry, coal, agriculture, landfills, wastewater treatment facilities. It's a ubiquitous chemical compound that is highly warming. It's increasing in volume. Bitcoin miners, because they are portable, flexible, scalable, are able to find points of methane emission and locate mining operations there, use a generator to burn the methane, create electrical energy, and mine on site.
Bitcoin miners are scrappy and innovative, and not only are they creating jobs, but they are finding new and interesting ways to use previously wasted resources, and they are revitalizing businesses and communities across America.
Yeah, it looks like they're building the engines there.
We call this the Gigaplant. It's on top of an abandoned oil refinery from the 1970s that was owned by my business partner's grandfather, Brent Whitehead. His grandfather owned the oil wells, owned the refinery, and owned the gas station. He'd pump oil and sell it for cash same day.
That's great succession.
It is. He went ahead and went bust though in the 80s, and this is what remains of the refinery. So we're now kind of taking over it and revitalizing it, building all the way from the ground up.
You're a young business in terms of the team. What's the average age?
On the leadership team, the average age is 22, 23.
You got any old people like me?
Yeah. What are you, 40?
44.
Oof. That's old.
I feel it, man.
So for this specific engine, we design everything from the ground up with Bitcoin mining.
Where do you pick these up from?
Oh, all over the US. Hospitals, junkyards. We take something that was basically junk and then refurbish it.
If you bought one of these new, what would these cost?
Probably about $150,000, $200,000.
And you pick this up secondhand, how much?
This was like 20 grand. But then there's a lot of labor and time.
I get it. Yeah. And that's you, Brandon?
I'm one of them, yes, sir.
What were you doing before you worked here?
I used to work in the gas compression field, which we deal with these same engines, just instead of running generators, we're running gas compressors.
What does Bitcoin now mean for you when you're not working?
Most people are afraid of it. So it's really cool to see people freak out about it, but then start wanting to know more about it.
And how many people now work for Giga?
19 total. You're coming at the end of the day when most people have left.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I'm glad we got you. So you buy these?
Yep, we buy those straight out of the Port of Houston used, selling for $110,000. It's prefabbed, we run all the Ethernet cables, we run the power cables, every single thing is ready, so you buy this, it shows up your door, you take your computer, rack it, plug the power cord in, plug the Ethernet in, you're done.
Can someone come to you and say, I've got a site, I want to buy all the kit off you, I want you to install it, and I want you to maintain it, I just want the Bitcoin.
So that's the goal, is we use our own products, but we also sell it for people who don't necessarily want to work with us. So this is where we cut it out, weld it up, put our frames in, things like that. It's a whole process.
I'm so impressed.
My business partner, he's third generation oil and gas. His grandfather is 93 years old, comes out here every day at 4 a.m. We see him on the security cameras, and he built up this entire refinery back in the 80s.
What does he make of Bitcoin?
He thinks it's the coolest thing in the world to see his grandson producing oil and gas equipment that he himself used back in the 70s. That's pretty cool to him.
Is that Grandpa?
Yeah.
What a cool guy.
He lives across the street.
Does he?
Yeah, you can see his house from the road.
Will he be there now?
Oh, yeah.
Will he talk to us?
Here's some of the rigs and things like that. And then that's my youngest son.
Huh.
We had a bunch of wells I started young.
I was told you're the local Bitcoin expert.
Well, I don't know. I don't know that much about it.
So I learned a new word yesterday. Wildcatting?
It's up and down like a roller coaster, like betting on a racehorse almost.
It's like buying Bitcoin.
Well, yes, that's but the Bitcoins are on its way up.
It must be great seeing your grandson working on the site, but with the new technology.
They've got everything they need. The sky's the limit. We're living in the best country in the world.
They should give you some rent in Bitcoin.
Oh, yeah. You can make a good living with it.
For decades, it was oil and gas. To see that kind of like generational shift from his grandfather as an oil and gas man to them as Bitcoiners who understand the industry, it's fucking cool, isn't it?
One of the core attributes of Bitcoin is that you can't really stop people from transacting in Bitcoin. If you have an internet connection and I have an internet connection and we live on opposite ends of the world and you live in a free society and I live in a dictatorship, you can still send me Bitcoin. That's the thing about Bitcoin that is world-changing, that's going to define the future of our economy and our society around the world. But it's also the thing that Elizabeth Warren and people who share Elizabeth Warren's philosophy on the left and the right find so objectionable.
Very hot in there.
Yeah, so that's a forced air, positive pressure, hot out, cold out setup.
How many ASICs you running in here?
Right now, I think there's about 200.
And how many can you go to?
So right now we have 2 megawatts available. With the overhead of the lights, we're running about 1 megawatt. So these actually are gridless machines, and they're from bankruptcy.
Good time to buy ASICs.
That's right.
I have learned more in 5 days visiting all these different miners than I have in my whole time in Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And there's this Bitcoin side of things, and then there's this business side.
You have to know so much about so much that is unrelated to your core business. So like for a big miner, they have to be expert power traders. They have to be expert at running a very nuanced data center. They have to be experts at electrical design, airflow design, all kinds of stuff. So as you scale, the challenges are nuanced and any one of them is an existential threat to your business. So that's why everybody is business, 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 because you're in the oil field. Okay, well, the generator went down. You're not making money. It's very nuanced in running a very good commodities business.
Okay, these are creating jobs, but are we overstating the amount of jobs it can create?
Large-scale Bitcoin miners are not employing massive amounts of people. However, what's unique about Bitcoin miners is the place where they can find the existing infrastructure to build huge deployments. They are in previously bustling small towns. They start coming in and leveraging those old infrastructure assets for power, employing the local community, but then the people spend their money back in the community. But the tax revenue that they get from people going to lunch is much more profound effect because it was a previously decimated population.
Tell me about gridless, because you went out there.
Effectively, there is no grid. There is no grid in Africa. When I was there, we went up and talked to a farmer who was one of the first people who got their power bill lowered from Bitcoin mining. And we said, what was the major impact you saw? He said that he was able to water his hay fields more, to feed his cows more, and not only was his power cheaper, but he was actually be able to make 3 times more because his cows were fatter. That was the big light bulb moment. I was like, holy shit, this is not like saving the grid and all this stuff. This is a company that can make money, the generator can make money, and the community can make money. And that is the minute that I decided to invest in gridless because that was the big turning point.
What will I get from going there and seeing it?
Kenya and specifically, it's like a land of abundance. Everything grows there. It's a beautiful place. The weather's amazing. The people are great. It's safe. You won't be able to truly appreciate the gravity of the situation until you go there. When you can see miners running on top of, literally on top of a turbine house, and that turbine house sending power to people, and then seeing the machines turn off at 6 p.m. when those people turn on their lights. And that is truly why I think Bitcoin's gonna absolutely take over Africa, because that story is the same in Kenya, Malawi, Mali, you name it, they have that problem. The biggest thing you can do to help somebody is give them cheap power. As a person who makes very little every day picking tea, you can't afford to plug in an electric hot plate to cook your food. But if you can drop the power, then you can incentivize people to do that. And if the mortality rate goes down, the effects are very widespread.
Yeah, so I think I'm going to get out there. I think I need to go and see it.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think one of the cool things about it is like it isn't charity.
It's a business.
It's a business.
100% it's a business. All the campaigns you see like on the TV, oh, feed this person for a day, that's not a sustainable long-term solution.
Yeah.
There have been tons of humanitarian efforts to ship food and all these things. Really what you need to do is use business intelligence to create money, and that's what we're doing there.
I care about Bitcoin because I see humanity on the verge of making a tremendous mistake. We have a powerful tool for advancing our civilization, and a number of misunderstandings are standing in the way of humanity taking advantage of this tool. And you can't watch that happen without taking action.
When you're sat in your DC office, it's easy to forget what real America looks like. But the decisions that politicians make affect businesses that support entire communities, and their poorly thought through policies not only have ripple effects across America, but throughout the world.
Hello. Does your dad do something weird with the swimming pool? Has he got funny little machines on there that make lots of noise?
It's pretty quiet here.
Hello, what's your name? Hazel, nice to meet you. I'm Peter. I sound weird. How you doing, man? Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Bennett, tell me about Bitcoin. What do you know about Bitcoin?
I can't help you.
Do you know anything? Nothing at all. What about you, Olivia? What do you know about Bitcoin? Nothing
I
at all.
know a little bit about Bitcoin.
Do you know how many Bitcoin there are?
A lot.
There are a lot. Does Dad talk about Bitcoin a lot?
Yeah. He tries to explain it to me.
You're like, whew.
Well, I don't really understand it even, and I've asked so many questions. You said it well. We were at a church retreat, and someone was trying to ask him about it. And he's like, I've never explained it well. But I don't think most people know what money is, and so you have to start with knowing what money actually is to understand Bitcoin.
Because you don't really think about it. You're just like, oh, I pull my wallet out, swipe my credit card, grab some cash, and it just works.
You know what I'm going to do first, right? Put my hand in.
Yeah, it's actually still cold. But you should be able to feel warmish water coming out of the jet. No, you can't actually tell.
No, you can. How long does it take to heat up?
It's about 2 to 3 weeks. It keeps pretty constant at about 92, 93.
I need my app to convert that.
Yeah, that's probably 30, 32 maybe. So it's not pretty.
Chad said don't touch the oil, it never comes off.
No, that's not so bad.
No?
Nah. You can touch it? Yeah, you can touch it.
I'm not gonna go zzz.
No, it's not super hot right now.
Is this just like a hobby project, or is this a genuine cost saving whilst making money?
Depending on how you look at it, I get a free heated pool.
So the Bitcoin pays for the...
It pays for the power.
That heats the pool?
Yes.
Wow, it's a cool thing to do.
The cool thing about home miners is trying to make use of the waste heat so it's not total throwaway. When these were 10,000 a piece 12 months ago, this wasn't a super...
6-7 year payback.
Yeah, but now that you can buy them for, $800 or less, it makes a little bit more sense.
And you did all the wiring, everything?
Yeah, it was actually clean before, but...
I'm just saying, I wouldn't even know where to start. So it's okay for it to rain into there?
So my DIY hack job is a sheet of plywood and some trash bags. At some point I'll go back and actually put a nice lid on it.
And so how does it actually heat the pool?
So it's a single phase, which means the dielectric fluid, the oil, never changes state. It stays in liquid form. The oil flows through the machines, removes the heat, and these blue hoses basically pump the fluid through this little copper heat exchanger. The hot oil flows into the heat exchanger, cold water flows into the heat exchanger in the opposite direction. So then hot water comes out, cold oil comes out, and the cold oil goes back into the bottom, and then the hot water comes out the jets. My old CEO, we actually looked at doing something like this for his pool.
But the problem is, if there's an issue over there, he's going to be calling you.
Exactly. I didn't want to be on speed dial.
You become the pool guy.
Yeah, exactly. I like being on speed dial for lunch, not on speed dial for for mining setup. It's not pretty, but this is how we do home mining.
You're enabling people to send money to activists around the world with a pool heater.
I came into Bitcoin mining from the technology aspect. So I came later to the freedom money, economic policy, fiscal policy, knowing that Bitcoin helps people in developed nations. I could literally Venmo you right now, and just as fast as with Lightning, but that doesn't work everywhere, and everybody else needs it just like we do.
Exactly. It's very cool.
Yeah. So that's it.
If Bitcoin goes to shit, you can be a handyman. There's something strangely therapeutic about this. It's like, how much can I get in one go? What are you paying, $9 an hour for this?
All right, safe travels home. So a grid of the future is really going to be like an and statement, a whole bunch of different types of resources. You're going to have energy storage, you're going to have
demand response, such as controllable loads. You have new generation technologies such as nuclear. But really, it's like in the future, you're going to be doing a 3x in electricity, is you need to have these new flexible resources for balancing the grid. So whichever that looks like, it's going to be, Bitcoin could be a very big part of that solution.
Dear Elizabeth Warren, I'm writing to you because you have a misinformed understanding of Bitcoin that will harm not just Americans, but people all around the world. I remember watching you fight against the bad actors on Wall Street, fighting for American families and holding the big banks accountable. I don't think you have realized it yet, but Bitcoin is a tool that helps your fight. Bitcoin is a very American idea. It represents freedom, and Bitcoin mining is a very American industry. It's hard work, boots on the ground, innovation. You have said that Bitcoin is bad for the environment, but the reality is that Bitcoin mining is a vital tool for the transition to a low-carbon grid. You have said that Bitcoin wastes energy, but Bitcoin miners are using energy that would otherwise go to waste. You have also said that Bitcoin has made grids unstable, but I have spoke to experts who state that it is the exact opposite. Bitcoin miners are working directly with grid operators to stabilize energy supplies, which will reduce customer prices. Not only this, but I've traveled across America and seen towns revitalized by Bitcoin mining companies. When you work against Bitcoin, you aren't just working against American people and values, you are working against disadvantaged people everywhere. The people that need this the most. What Bitcoin is doing for America, it is doing for marginalized people throughout the world, creating jobs, providing stable energy, and banking the unbanked. Elizabeth, how do you want to be remembered? As someone who tried to derail one of the greatest innovations the world has seen, or someone who did their best for the little guy, not just in America, but throughout the world? Thanks, Peter.